What's up, everyone? I'm super excited about today's episode because we're going to be animating a ball bounce together. In addition to that, we're also going to be looking at the node view and getting a better understanding of how to use that, as well as working with the timeline, setting keyframes, understanding in-betweens, everything we need to know to go into doing a simple animation. In this video, I'm going to be working off of my brand new Wacom One Touch 13-inch display. Shout out to Wacom for sending me this so I can use it during my videos. Also, a big thank you to Wacom for sponsoring this video. I'm super excited to get started, so let's dive in. Alright, so we got Toon Boom open here, and I'm going to start off this video just using the touch on screen features to just show you just how awesome using the Wacom One Touch is and how we can just create things just with our finger and touching on screen. So, new scene here. I'm going to name this Ball Bounce. And I'm going to create scene. First thing I want to do is I want to create a color card just so we can get a nice white screen. So I'm going to go here, press the plus button, color card, and I'm going to lock that layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a ball, and instead of using the paintbrush tool to draw a circle, I'm just going to use the shape tool to help me create a circle really easily. So I want to make sure I'm on my drawing layer, so I'm just going to click that. I'm on there. I'm going to go to my shape tool, I'm going to select that, rectangle, ellipse, line, so we want ellipse for circle. If I just click and drag it out right now, the shape is going to be a little wonky. I want to make sure it's a perfect circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the shift button, and I'm just going to click on the screen, and I'm just going to click and drag, and we have our circle, perfect circle. I want to make the thickness of the outline a little bit thicker. So I'm going to click my selection tool, I'm going to highlight that, I'm going to go to my tool properties, drag this out, scroll down, and I'm just going to drag this out a little bit. So now I can see it. Now that the thickness is changed on the outline, I'm just going to go here, I'm just going to click off, and I want to go to my color. And now I want to think about the fill of the ball. So I'm going to go with blue. I'm going to go with my paint bucket tool, and I'm just going to click. Now that I have the thickness of the circle that I like and I have the fill that I like, I just want to mess with the overall size because I just kind of dragged and created it. Now, one thing to think about is this box right here. This is our workspace, this is our stage, and then out here, this is just kind of working area, like we can draw anything, create anything on the side here, but if you export a video or if you export an image, whatever's in this box, this is what's gonna show. Whatever's on the outside won't show. And an easy way to just crop this little square button right here, you just gotta click that. And that kind of eliminates the outside works area. And now we're just focusing on just our stage area. Size this down. There we go. So that's a little bit better, maybe a little bit more. That's good. I like that. And also what I want to do is I have my ball. I want to make like a floor line because the ball is going to be bouncing up and down. So I'm going to go here. I just want a new drawing. So you can choose between vector or bitmap. I always go with vector. So add and close. So we have that. We have a new drawing layer created, and I'm going to go back to the shape tool. I want a line, and I will make this a black line. And I'm gonna hold down Shift again, and I'm just gonna click and drag straight across. So now I have my line, and it's really, really thin. So I'm gonna select, highlight, tool properties, go on down, maximum size. I'm just gonna drag this up. So there we go. So now we can see the line. So now that will be kind of like our floor plane. So when the ball bounces, it's gonna hit off of there. So it's not just bouncing in limbo. We have it bouncing off of a floor line. And let's see here. So we have this one. I'm gonna double click. I'm gonna name this circle. Just gonna double click. And I'm gonna name this floor line. So you can already see, like, it's pretty cool how you can simply just use your finger, touch on the screen, go through all the settings, and pretty much just start creating things and get everything set up with easy touches. So this is really cool feature, and I just love using the on-screen touch display. So let's dive in a little bit more here. So we have our circle, we have our floor line created. So before we move forward with this, I want to talk a little bit. We're gonna do animation, but I need to talk about the node view. So if you don't have the node view, just hit the plus button here and go right down, node view, select that, have that open. So what is the node view? So the node view, it's just a visual representation of whatever's happening on the timeline here with our layers. So floor line, circle, circle, color card. It's all the same thing here. It's just easier to work with your layers and move things around and organize things in the node view as opposed to working in the timeline. And whenever it comes to working in animation, I highly recommend using the node view. And you can use your timeline just when it comes to the keyframes and tweening, which we'll get into, but use the node view for creating new layers and things like that. So like I said, so we have our floor line here. If I highlight this, so every blue square here, this is called a node. So the node is the illustration that we created. This is the drawing. This is just our color card. If I highlight and on my keyboard, if I hit the letter D, as in David, it disables the layer. So it kind of turns it off. So you could see the eyeballs here turned off. If I hit A, that activates it and brings it back on. So it's the same thing of like going here. I don't want to see it. I'm seeing it. So that kind of helps. Or I can highlight it. I have my little lock button here, so I can click that easily as opposed to going down here and clicking the little button. I have lock. If you don't have this, go to customize and you could find the lock in here, bring it on over and hit OK. So we have our floor line, so I don't want that to move, so I'm just going to lock that. We have our circle, so we could see here if I get the selection tool, highlight it. So this is our circle, our ball that we created that we're going to be animating together. The composite down here, so this composite, think of this as just organizing things together. So the composite will collect all the information and organize it down. So this floor line, this is the illustration, this is the file. I could see this. If I click this, this shows me what's inside of here. So this is the information of the drawing that we're seeing here. The information is traveling down this line into the composite area. So the floor line, the circle, color card, it's all going to here. And then from here, from the composite, it's taking all three of this information, and now it's traveling the information to the display. So the display is showing us on screen, and the right node, this is going to be for exporting. So everything that is coming here goes to here, and it's going to allow us to see it when we export the video. So that is the nodes, the composite, and this is like as simple as I can think of explaining it, but it will get more and more complicated and much more advanced as you're dealing with a lot of characters and backgrounds and special effects and things like that. But let's just keep it nice and easy. We created our circle, so this is our drawing. Whenever you're going to animate an object, you want to create a peg. So to create a peg, I'm just going to do Command P, that's the shortcut I have, and then here is our peg. To connect the peg, I'm just going to click here, and I'm just going to drag, and it's going to snap right to our circle. So now the peg is controlling the circle. Another way to do it is I'm going to select the circle, and I'm going to do Command P. That will now connect it automatically and rename it Circle P. So Circle P for peg. So now we have it renamed. If you want to rename it, you just click on the white square, and this gives us all the properties, and now I can change the name of the circle. And if we look down here to our timeline with our layers, so we have Circle P, this is the peg that we created, and the circle right here. If I wasn't to do this in the node view, and I did it down here, I would go hold down the plus, my peg, and then the peg is created, but you can see it's like all the way down there floating. And then I would drag it up to right there, and I would drag the circle underneath, and now it's connected. And you could see how it's kind of like it's there, it's connected, it didn't get renamed, and it's just kind of like really, really messy right now. So this is why doing it in the timeline here with the layers, it's not the easiest way to do it. So that's why I like to, I'm gonna undo that. So that's why I like to, in the node view, select it, do it, and it's already renamed, it's already connected, as opposed to creating it here with the drop down, moving the layers to connect it, having to rename it. With the peg created, I want you to think about a folder on your desktop. So the folder is the peg. Our circle is the file inside the folder. So we can move the folder all around the desktop, but the files inside the folder, that never gets moved. That just gets dragged around with the folder, and the folder is protecting all the information of the files within it. That's kind of how I think of pegs and nodes and the artwork. So that's kind of the best way I can explain it. The circle is in our node drawing. So this is the file, this is the information. Our peg is going to be all the information of the animation happening to the circle while preserving the shape of the circle and the artwork. So now that we have that, I want to hit so I have my circle peg selected. I'm going to hit my transform tool. So here is the circle, here's the transform, and you can see that my pivot point is a lot lower than what I want. So now if I rotate it, it's rotating at that pivot point below. I want my pivot point, I'm just going to lower this, move this to the side. I want my pivot point of my circle to be right in the middle. So I'm going to go to my rotate tool. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click and drag it, and this will permanently move the pivot point to the center. And now I'm going to click off. So now it's there. So every time I click circle, now if I rotate, it's there. Let's say I didn't do that. I didn't do the rotation tool. So I'm going to select, and I'm just going to click and drag it to the middle. You'll see that we still have the little shadow indentation of where the pivot point permanently is. I just temporarily move the pivot point. So now if I rotate, it's rotating from the middle. And then if I click off, you'll see it's back to being at the bottom. So we want to permanently move it so that it always stays in the middle. So clicking the rotation tool, moving it right to the middle, and now it's there. You'll notice that when I'm on the stage here, have if I click on the circle, I'm always selecting the drawing. And only if I click on peg, then we see that it's the peg selection. And you could tell by it's a purple outline, so this means we're selecting the drawing. If I select the circle peg, it's a yellow outline. Since we don't want to mess with the circle drawing because it's perfect, we don't want anything to happen to our drawing. If I go to tool properties, I'm going to select this peg selection mode. So I'm going to have this turned on. Now, every single time I click on the ball, it's always going to select just the peg. I'm never going to click it and accidentally get to this level of the hierarchy. So this is the drawing with the purple. I'm selecting it. I'm always getting the yellow transformation, which means I'm affecting the ball, the peg of the ball. Let's say I wanted to, I'm off here. I'm on my tool properties. I'm selecting this. Let's say for some reason I want to get down a level to get to the drawing of the circle. If I hit Shift B, that brings me down. That's the hotkey to move down a level in the hierarchy that we have here. If I hit the letter B, that moves up a level. So Shift B to move down, B to move up a level. So we have that selected, we have there. So with the color card, that's just our background, so I don't need a peg on that. Our floor line, we're not going to be moving it, so I just want a peg on the ball, on our circle, because that's the only thing we're going to be animating. That's the only thing we're going to be working on. Let's move on to our timeline and get a better understanding. So I'm going to zoom in here. So we have our circle. So this is frame 1. You can see the 10 here. This is going to be frame 10. So this frame is the drawing of our circle. Now notice how it's a gray box and you see it's filled in, it's circled, it's red because we're selecting it, we're on it. I'm going to go over here, one frame over. Notice how the ball disappears, the floor line disappears, everything kind of disappears. That's because it's only being held for one frame. And you can see here, this is our indication: frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. So it's telling us what frame we are on. So it's not being shown because the exposure of the circle and of the line is only one frame. And we want it to be much longer because we want it to be multiple frames, because 24 frames equals 1 second of video. So 1 second of a QuickTime video, 1 second of footage, 24 frames. Each frame, if you're coming from a background of working on paper, doing traditional hand-drawn animation, think of each box here, each frame, as a piece of paper. So you would draw on this one, then you get a new piece of paper, you draw on this one, and this would be your frames, and you would be animating like that. So I want to extend the exposure of the circle so it stays on screen longer. So I'm just going to go to frame 60 here, all the way at the end, and I'm going to hit the hotkey F5. So F5 allows me to extend the exposure all the way. So now, when I get my playhead here and I click and drag it, it stays on screen for 60 frames. So a little over 2 seconds stays on screen. And we could see our floor line isn't staying on screen, so that's disappearing. So I'm going to unlock that. I'm going to click on the first frame. I'm going to hit F5, and this pop-up window will come, because if I go to the end like I did with the circle and just hit F5, it's just going to push everything right to there and extend. If I do this, F5, extend to frame, I'm going to say 20. Overwrite, it's fine. Okay. Now you'll see it extended the exposure of our floor line to 20. It's 20 frames. And then at 21, it disappears. So I want it to stay on screen the same amount of time as the ball. So I'm going to go to frame 60, hit F5. It extends all the way. I'm going to go back to frame 1. So my playhead, we're on frame 1. I'm starting at the beginning. I don't need to see the exposure anymore of the circle. So I'm just going to hit this to collapse it. I'm just going to hit the arrow button. So that collapses it. Now I want to select the circle, and I'm going to hit F6. So F6 is the hotkey, the shortcut to create a keyframe. So a keyframe is this little red dot here. So the keyframe is what is used to represent any changes happening, any changes, any movements for the animation. So you can see that I have a keyframe here and the ball is here. So it's recording the information of the position of the ball. And if I go to frame 2, if I hit F6, and I'm going to click and drag this ball over here. So the information of frame 1 is the ball in this spot. And I move the ball to over here and created a keyframe. So when I go to frame 2, the ball is over here. So frame 1, frame 2. If I go to frame 9, I'm going to create a keyframe. I'm going to move the ball over here. Now we'll see that frame 1, ball's right there. Frame 2, the keyframe of it moving. Since there are no keyframes happening here, the ball will remain in that position for this amount of frames because there's no other keyframe, so there's no changes happening to the ball. On frame 9, it's going to move down because there's a keyframe right there and that's where I moved the ball to that new position. So that's pretty much a simple explanation and understanding of keyframes and placing them, creating a keyframe. If also, if you don't want to hit F6, if I just move the ball, so I just selected frame 4, I'm just going to move the ball, automatically sets a keyframe for you. And I'm going to move it over here, sets a keyframe. So now we have boop, 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 boop. So it's moving all around. And if I hit my play button, play forward, the playhead will be playing in real time, 24 frames per second. So if you're to play a video, play a QuickTime, this is the same thing. You're playing it, and it's playing the footage of your animation in the exact speed and time that you have it timed out. If you highlight, I'm just clicking, highlighting, you can move the keyframes down the timeline. If I click a frame before, if I do Shift plus and keep hitting plus, that will also move the keyframes down the timeline. If I hit the minus button on my keyboard, that will delete frames and move the keyframes closer. If you want to move individual keyframes, no problem. I'm just going to select, and I'm just going to click and drag it over. And this one, I'm going to click and drag it over. So now this will hold for 2 frames and then move. So even though we're moving things on the timeline and moving the keyframes around, the position does not change because that's recorded. Whatever position it is on screen, that's recorded with our keyframe. Now we're just moving things around for the timing. So now things are being held longer. They're moving at different time, different speed. So that's how we edit the movement and timing of our keyframes on the timeline. And I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to do F7 to get rid of our keyframes. So now we're back to just frame 1. If I highlighted and then I hit delete or backspace, the ball disappears. That is because I deleted exposures of the ball. So here it is. And now because there's no exposure of the ball, it disappears. And I'm going to undo that. So when we're doing our F7, it's just deleting the information of where the ball is on screen, but we still see the ball, the circle on screen for those amount of frames. Another thing I want to talk about is layering. So we see the floor line is on the left, the ball, the circle's in the middle, and we have our color card over here. I'm going to click our circle. I'm going to drag this down, and you'll see that the floor line is to the left, so the floor line is above, so it's layering over our circle. So if anything is higher up, it's going to be on top or in front of the object. If something's below a layer above it, it's going to be behind or below that layer or that illustration or that object. So an easy way to fix this is you can unhook this. If I take this off, the floor line disappears. It's not showing up because it's not connected to the composite. So there's no information traveling to the composite for us to see it on the display, for it to export out, but it's still there. We still see the line because the information is still here. We just don't have the file sending the information. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to click. I'm just going to drag it over here. I'm going to highlight my circle peg and the circle drawing. Just going to move this over to the side, and I'm going to drag this down. And now we can see the circle is above the floor line. That's the way I like to work. I'm going to undo. Another way is clicking the circle here, and I'm going to click and drag to the top. And now you'll see the circle and the floor line, the points change position. So whatever's to the left is going to be the highest. Whatever's to the right side is going to be the lowest. The only thing is I'm just really OCD and I like things to be really clear. So I don't like it crossing over like this. So again, that's why I like to just move things over so everything is nice and clear where the information is coming from. I'm going to move my ball back up here. I'm going to move it right there. And I want to resize my ball just a little bit more. So I'm just going to hold down Shift. I'm just going to drag it to like right there. And I feel like it's a little thick. So I want to change the drawing. So I'm going to select that. Tool properties. Just going to change that down to like there. That's good. Okay, we're about halfway through this tutorial. I really hope you're enjoying it. I don't know about you, but I could use a quick break, so I'll be right back. Now I want to start animating this ball bounce. So frame 1, my ball is at the top here, my circle, and I want to think about, I'm just planning out the key poses of the ball bounce. So frame 1, it's up, and I'm just going to go to the very next frame. I'm going to hit F6 to create my keyframe. Selecting the ball, drag it down a little bit, hold down Shift, and it will stay aligned, perfectly moving down. So if I try to move to the sides, it won't. It's only going to move up and down because I'm holding down Shift, and it's going to lock to that position. So now I know when it goes down, it's perfectly straight. The ball is going to be up, and it's going to come down, and then after that it's going to go right back up again. So instead of making another keyframe dragging the ball up to the same exact spot, I'm just going to reuse this information of the ball in this exact position. So I'm going to click on the keyframe. I'm going to do Command C to copy, and I'm going to go to frame 3, and I'm going to do Command V to paste. So I just took the information of frame 1, pasted it onto frame 3, and now they are exactly the same. And frame 2 is the position of the ball down. So now I have up, down, up. So now I have the key poses of my ball bounce. So up, down, up. Since this is animation and it's a cartoon, we don't want it to just be a boring ball bounce where the ball kind of looks the same. You know, it's up here, it goes down, it looks like this and goes up. We want to make it cartoony, and we want it to look very bouncy, very squash and stretches and all those kind of foundations to animation that really make it a piece of artwork and gives it purpose as to why this is meant to be a cartoon, because we're going to push the physics, we're going to push the reality of things. So when the ball's up, it's going to hit down. I want this to be a really big impact, and I want the ball to squash and stretch when it comes to a hit. So I'm going to zoom in here. I am going to temporarily move my pivot point down to here. So now it will rotate at this point. I am going to squash the ball down. So I'm clicking and dragging the transformation tool. I squashed the ball down. Now I want to think about not only squashing, but the mass that's going to change. So it needs to stretch a little bit on the sides here. So I'm going to stretch that out. So now we have the impact pose of the ball. So you'll see frame 1, frame 2, it being hit on the ground, frame 3 going up. Notice how I made all these changes on the peg information. So like I was saying, I'm affecting this area for animation. The circle never changes. If I was to remove this, here's our circle. The circle's still in this position. Nothing has changed. Everything remains the same. I'm going to connect it again. The ball's a little bit smaller. This is the position that it's in. So the ball is still the same. And now going through, we have those actions happening. Next step, we have our beginning, we have middle breakdown, and we have our end. So we have the full cycle here going. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Now we're going to think about our in-betweens. These are our key poses. We want to think about in-betweens. So I'm going to just move this down the timeline a little bit. All right, I moved my keyframes around the timeline, and just so we're on the same page, I have the first pose with the ball all the way up on frame 1. I have the squash impact pose on frame 11, and I have the up position again on frame 21. I want to start thinking of the ball going down to this impact pose. What I'm going to do is I want to turn on my onion skin. So I'm going to click this on, and this shows me, let me just click out. So the red indicates the frames before, the green indicates what's coming after. I'm going to click on the green, I'm going to drag this out, and we'll see a green silhouette of the ball, which indicates frame 9. And since we're on this frame, nothing's happening. If I was to go to frame 2 and move this over, we'll see a red indication onion skin of where the ball was before. And that's because, like I said, this is the red part, and down here, past this playhead is green for coming up next. Red is what happened before. I'm going to hit F7, get rid of that. Now I want to think about timing and favoring a certain pose. I'm thinking about hang time in the air and speed of the ball. If everything is on ones, if I do keyframe here, keyframe here, keyframe here, that makes the animation a lot smoother, and it can slow down the animation. If you have a lot of frames over a long period of time, it'll make it a lot smoother, and slow down the action. Since this is a very fast action, I'm going to do this animation on twos, which means every odd frame I'm going to have a keyframe. So this is 2 frames, 1, 2, and then I'm going to put a keyframe on 3. So it's holding for 2 frames, new keyframe. This is going to hold for 2 frames, and then on 5, there's going to be another keyframe. So this is what it means to do animation on twos. 2, 2. So there's a gap in between each keyframe, so that means it's on twos. If I had a keyframe on 1, keyframe on 2, that's animating on ones. We want to animate on twos. With the ball being at the highest point coming down, we want this action at the bottom here to be very quick. So that means we are going to keep all of our in-betweens farther away from this final pose of it squashing so that it looks faster. We're going to keep a lot of our in-betweens and the instances of the ball favoring the top of the ball so it has more hang time. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to go on frame 3, and I'm going to move the ball down just a little bit. So that little bit of a change. So now frame 1, frame 3, it's moving that little tiny bit. And even on frame 1, you could see we have the onion skin, so I can see frame 2 where it's going to be. Very little of a difference. I'm going to go to frame 5, and I'm going to do same exact thing, very little, but a touch more of a difference. So there we go. So now frame 1, frame 3, very little, frame 5, a little bit more. So a little bit more of a distance between 1 and 3. 3 to 5 is a little bit more. On frame 7, I'm going to go a lot more. I'm going to go down to like about halfway. I'm going to go there, right there. So now we got 1, 3 is a little bit, 5 is a little bit more, and we see a greater distance on frame 7. Now I want to think about, that cartoony style and thinking of speed. So on frame 9, I'm going to create a keyframe. We have all this area that we have to travel from here to here. What I'm going to do is I am going to drag this down to right about here, and I want to stretch the ball so it looks like a smear. It looks like it's going really, really fast and traveling fast. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag this out so I'm stretching it. But because I'm stretching it, I also want to think of the mass of the circle of the ball. So if it's stretching up like this, that means it's also going to get skinnier on the sides here. And then it's going to go from here, and it's going to, bam, hit right there onto the floor. And we can, let me drag this out so we can see the in-betweens using our onion skin. So we could see the balls up here, it's going down, stretching, and coming down and hitting the impact. I'm going to turn off the onion skin, and I'm just going to scrub through. So I'm just holding, clicking and dragging the playhead on the timeline. I'm just dragging so we could see that animation happening. So there we go. There's our first animation, your first keyframes of a ball dropping and hitting down. The next step is getting the ball to go from here back up to its original point. There's two long ways of doing this, and there's one very quick way of doing this. The first long way of doing this is to work backwards. I'm going to hit a keyframe on frame 13. So with the ball being down here, to travel back up, it would have to follow the same exact information but backwards. So it has to squash traveling back up, back to this point, and then very slowly getting back to the top of the hang time of the ball, the highest point in the air, and then it's going to come back down. So you can, clicking on this keyframe, we have all of this changes that we did. We squashed it, we stretched it. If I do Shift R, that will bring the ball back to the original position that I had it. It removes all of the transformation and any changes we made to the ball. And now from here, I could do the same thing. I can stretch it, I can do this, and bring it to the same spot. That's a lot of work to keep doing every keyframe. Gotta do another keyframe, Shift R, bring the ball to this point. That could take a lot of work. And you want to make sure that it perfectly resembles the position that it was before. So I'm going to get rid of that, F7, get rid of that. So that's the first long way of doing it. The second long way of doing it is also to select the frame before, frame 9. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to go over here to 7. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go 15 and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm pasting one by one the frames so it's the exact same position. From 9 down, 13, it's coming up. It's the same position as 9 and I'm working backwards. That is the second long way of animating a very simple action. Now I want to show you a very simple and easy way. What we're going to do is I know that this is the end pose, this is our breakdown, and it's going to animate this way on the timeline, but it's going to go back this way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these keyframes and making sure not just the keyframe but also the in-between frames. So even though frame 9, I want to get frame 10 also. I am going to right click. I am going to copy cells from the timeline. I am going to click on frame 12. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to paste reverse. So it's going to not only copy and paste my frames, but reverse the order of the frames that I have. I'm going to click that. This doesn't always work perfectly. So we have all this information that we need, but we're missing this frame for some reason. So I'm just going to click, highlight all this. I'm just going to drag it over one frame. And for this one, this stretch pose, I'm just going to copy this frame, paste it there. But now we have the up, it's coming down, hits, and then bounces up, and then following the same frames. And then these last two frames are pretty much the same. So I'm just going to delete that. I'm just going to hit F7 and get rid of that keyframe. So there we go. So now we have the ball up and I'm just going to play it. And if you do this, we have frame 1, frame 21. I am going to stop it. So this is the play, the start at frame 1, it stops at 60. Instead, I'm going to stop it at frame 22. So now you'll see this playhead it kind of went right here to frame 22. If I drag this out, it's going to change right here, so it's going to play longer. I'm going to go to 22, and I'm going to turn this on. So this is the looping of the playhead, so it will loop the action. And I'm going to hit my play forward, and now you'll have the ball bouncing up and down. Perfect timing. I'm going to unclick this, unclick the loop. I'm going to put the stop back at frame 60. Let's say I'm just going to zoom out here. So we have it happening once, the ball bounce. So it's here, hits once, goes back up. And because I looped it and stopped it, it's just playing this amount of time looping. But let's say you wanted to have the ball bounce happening longer for like a longer video. All you have to do is thinking about, the looping action. So this frame 21 is the same as frame 1. So I'm going to just get rid of 21. I'm going to F7. I'm going to highlight all the way here. I'm going to copy. Now I'm going to go to 21 and I'm going to paste. And I'm going to go over here, paste. And now I have the animation going for the same amount of time as the length of our timeline. Instead of looping it on just 20 frames, you can just copy, paste the cycle of the ball bounce. So it's happening at the same amount of time, same amount of frames for the length of the timeline. If you're super happy with your animation and you love the way it looks, we can talk a little bit about exporting it. Very simple step. So you're just going to go to File, Export, Movie, and then you're going to get pop-up window. This is our pop-up window for the settings to export a video. First we have is the video format, H.264. This will give you a .mp4 video file. If you want a .mov file, you'll just select QuickTime, and that will change the end of the file name, .mp4 or .mov, so it's based on your preference, whatever you want. Output file, this is the name of the file and where you want it to save. I'm going to hit Browse. Save as, I want to name this ball bounce animation, and I'm going to save this to my desktop, H.264. So that's there. Export from the display node. So that was under our composite. So that's just going to display everything. Export range. So you can set, if I only want this to be, 24 frames or just a certain clip, just a certain snippet of the amount of frames from our timeline, you would enter that number here, or you could just hit all, and it's going to be from frame 1 all the way to the last frame on our timeline, which was frame 60. So I'm just going to click all. Resolution, if you want to keep it the exact size that you made the file, we made the file 1920 1080, you keep it same as. Let's say you just want a quick render, like you just want a test file, you want to lower the resolution. This will make the file a lot smaller. So you can do half scene resolution, 3/4, so, or you could just do custom. And by changing the resolution to a lower quality, it will make, of course, the picture quality is going to be less, but the size of the file, being 1 GB, 500 megabytes, that will change. I want to keep it same as scene resolution, keep it nice. Scene color space, scene working color space. Let's just keep this the same, and my options are fine, and I'm hit OK. And then since it was such a quick file, we're just going to see a pop-up window go to that it's rendering, and we'll see ball bounce anim.movie. I'm going to double click this, and we'll see the QuickTime movie pop up, and I'm going to play, and it's playing my file. If you want to, you can. I have QuickTime. I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to turn on Loop. So now, even though it's 2 seconds of animation, I'll just click, and it'll go down, and then it'll just keep looping the animation for those 2 seconds. And now we have a full video export, and now you can upload this video to your portfolio. You can share this video on social media. I think for social media it has to be .mp4. I don't think Instagram or social medias like to use .mov, so that's another reason, thinking of what kind of file you need for where you're going to be posting it. But yeah, so this is very simple ball bounce, and it's funny when people are like, oh, animation's so hard, but you can see that it wasn't really that difficult to create such a simple motion of a ball bouncing, getting that squash and stretch and getting that bouncy, cartoony feel to it, and just having fun and understanding the pegs and understanding the nodes and the node view and keyframes. So if you got to this point and your animation looks exactly like this, awesome job. So proud of you. You're following along exactly, and that's great. All right, that's it. That's the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video. If you want to keep following me on social media, you could follow me at thatkidpinker or at YHA_book. And if you're thinking of buying a Wacom product for yourself, you can use my affiliate link below the video. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.